For many years, humans had watched the stars. They had built ships, left Earth, and stepped into the galaxy. Other alien species had already spread far and wide, building empires and councils. Humanity was new, but fast, curious, fearless, and that made them dangerous. One day, deep in space, far beyond any known star maps, a signal was heard. It came without warning, a low sound, broken, like a whisper across the void. At first it made no sense. No language matched it. No star system. Near it, just black space and the signal. But some people noticed something strange. The signal was repeating in a pattern, like a message. Scientists ran tests. They cleaned the audio. After weeks of study, a few words became clear. And when they heard it, silence filled the room. Do not come here. But it was already too late. A small exploration ship was sent. Not military, not armed for war. Just a scout ship with a crew of researchers and explorers. Their mission: find the source of the signal and learn what was out there. The location was marked on no chart. Even the oldest alien maps showed nothing. No stars, no planets, just empty black. Yet something was out there, and it was calling. As the ship moved through the darkness, strange things began to happen. Their navigation systems glitched. Star maps became useless. The ship passed a region where light seemed to bend. Time felt slower. A cold feeling crawled into their bones. The crew joked at first. Maybe it was just deep space playing tricks. But then the stars vanished. Not behind clouds, not behind gas. They just disappeared, one by one, until the ship floated in complete darkness. No light, no sound. Just the signal, now louder than ever. And clearer. Turn back. Still, the mission continued. The crew didn't believe in ghost stories. They believed in science. They believed in answers. So they followed the signal to its source, a system with one planet. Cold. Dead. No sun. No heat. It floated like a rock in the void. No reason for life. No reason for a signal, but the signal came from there. The ship landed on the surface. The ground was black, made of sharp stone. The wind was still. No life. No movement. The crew stepped out and looked around. They found ruins. Buildings made of dark metal, half buried under rock and dust. Old. Very old. Older than any alien race. Far too advanced for the time they should have come from. Something lived here once. Something smart. Something powerful. The deeper they walked into the ruins, the more strange things they saw. Symbols carved into the walls, long and curved like claws. Hallways built for something tall and fast. Doors too thick for normal use. And in one chamber they found bones. Not alien bones. Human bones. But these bones were different, thicker, taller, and ancient. Tests said they were over 50,000 years old. That couldn't be right. Humans didn't leave Earth until just a few centuries ago. So how could human bones be buried on a dead world in an unmarked part of space? Panic spread among the crew. Some wanted to leave. Others wanted to dig deeper. That's when they found the object. It stood in the center of a dark chamber, black and smooth like glass, shaped like a tall spike. It gave off no heat, no sound, but it felt alive. One of the crew reached out and touched it. The ground trembled. Lights came on across the ruins, red and deep like eyes opening. The signal stopped. A new sound played, sharp and cold. You were warned. In that moment, something woke up. Far below the surface, machines began to move. Dust fell from the ceilings. A loud metal sound echoed through the ruins. The crew ran back to the ship. But the engines didn't start. Then they heard it. Not a machine. Not a voice. A growl. Something was coming up from below. Something that had waited a very long time. Far away across the galaxy, deep space satellites on Earth picked up something strange. The signal had changed direction. It was no longer just a warning. Now, It was a beacon. The ship was silent. Outside, the ruins glowed with a red light. Inside, fear had replaced curiosity. The crew stood frozen. Systems were failing. Lights flickered. Engines refused to start. But worst of all, the signal had stopped. The silence was louder than any sound. One of the crew tried the emergency power. Another worked on communication systems. No answer. No rescue. The galaxy was far away now. They were alone. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the ruins outside. A sharp, metallic screech, like stone breaking apart. Then another, and another. Something was moving under the surface, something big. But the scanner showed nothing alive, no heat, no movement, just dead land. Still something was coming. The crew had no choice. If the ship wouldn't fly, they had to hide or find help. They left the ship and moved deeper into the ruins. Flashlights shook in their hands. Shadows danced on the walls. The red glow above made everything look bloody and wrong. As they walked, they noticed strange marks on the walls, deep claw-like lines as if something had tried to escape or something else had forced its way in. Dust covered everything, but here and there it had been disturbed. Footprints. Fresh. Not human. The deeper they went, the more they saw. A giant hallway stretched ahead, with massive stone doors at the end. The air was cold. Too cold. One of the crew wiped frost from the wall and found a symbol. It was Earth's sun, surrounded by stars, and under it, in broken ancient text, was a single word: origin. Why would this forgotten place have a symbol of Earth? How could it know about humans long before they ever reached space? They pushed the doors open. Inside was a great chamber, round, black, silent. In the center stood a circle of strange machines. Wires ran into the walls like roots. A soft hum vibrated through the floor. Then they saw them. Pods. Rows of dark pods along the wall, each large enough to hold a person. Most were broken, cracked, empty, but a few still had lights, still sealed. Something was inside. The crew approached, one of the working pods. They wiped away the thick glass. What they saw made them step back in horror. Inside was a human, but not like any they had seen. Its eyes were closed, muscles thick, skin marked with strange lines like tattoos. A strange, breathing mask covered its mouth. Tubes ran into its chest. It was sleeping or locked in. One of the crew spoke in a whisper. "How is this possible?" Another answered, "That's not one of us. That's something older." Then the lights flickered again. The hum grew louder. And the pod shifted. It was waking up. Before they could run, a sharp sound filled the room. It wasn't a scream. It was a pulse, like a voice, without words, pushed into their minds. "You are not ready." The ground shook. Some pods opened, empty, others cracked apart. Nothing inside but dust. But behind the chamber, a hidden wall began to slide open. Beyond it, a tunnel descended deep into the planet. Dark. Endless. One of the crew spoke with a shaking voice. "We need to go down. We need to know what this place really is." Another replied, "No. We need to leave before it's too late." But the choice was already made. The lights behind them died. The red glow vanished. From far down the tunnel, something moved. No footsteps, no breath, just a feeling, a weight pressing on the air. Whatever lived here, it wasn't alive in the way humans understood, and it had just noticed them. The tunnel was not natural. Its walls were smooth, dark, and cold to the touch. Lights from the crew's suits reflected off the surface, but the darkness swallowed the glow quickly. It felt like the tunnel itself didn't want to be seen. The crew moved slowly, step by step. Behind them, the pod chamber door sealed shut. A sound, soft at first, began to echo through the tunnel. Not mechanical, not human. A deep rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. One beat, then silence, then again. Boom. Boom. The further they walked, the louder it got. It wasn't coming from one place. It was all around them, in the walls, in the floor, in their chests. Then they reached the end of the tunnel. It opened into a massive underground chamber, so large their lights couldn't see the other side. Giant pillars rose from floor to ceiling, covered in strange symbols glowing faintly. Red. On the far wall was a huge door. Unlike the others, it was shaped like a claw. In front of it, a console stood. Ancient, cracked, but still active. One of the crew stepped forward. The console lit up as their hand moved near. No buttons, no switches. Just a screen with spinning symbols. Then a voice filled the room. Not through ears, but inside their minds. Data match found. Genetic code confirmed. Access granted. Everyone froze. What did it say? Someone whispered. Another answered. It said we match and it knows us. The console changed. A map appeared in the air above it. Not just a star map, but a war map. Hundreds of red markers. Dozens of crossed-out systems. Whole planets marked as destroyed. And in the center, Earth. Next to it, a warning symbol. Then the screen shifted again. It showed a memory, a recording. Humans, older, stronger, with golden armor and glowing weapons, standing in front of a Tabe fleet. Not just spaceships. Machines the size of moons. Their eyes were cold, empty, not curious, not kind. These humans were not explorers. They were conquerors. The crew watched in silence as the ancient war played out. The galaxy burning, alien, species falling, and then the humans turning on each other. A civil war, a final battle. The machines turned off. Silence again. One crew member whispered, "We didn't come from Earth. We returned to it." That's when the console shut down, and the door behind it opened. A blast of cold wind rushed out. Not air, not gas. Something worse. It smelled like dust, metal, and old blood. Inside the room, rows of tall, dark shapes stood still. Soldiers, machines, statues. No one knew, until one of them moved. Its head turned slowly toward the crew. No face, just a smooth black helmet. Its arms hung down, longer than a human's. Its chest pulsed with a red light. Then its voice came, cold and sharp. Apex, Unit 01, awake. Behind it, more lights turned on, one by one. The others woke. The crew ran, back through the tunnel, back toward the sealed door. But something had changed. The walls pulsed with energy now. The tunnel was closing behind them, stone grinding against stone, dust falling from above. One crew member turned and saw them, those tall figures walking in silence, not fast, not slow, just coming, always coming. They made it back to the pod, room, slammed the door behind them, locked it. Silence. Then, the main console flickered on again. One final message appeared on the screen. Earth failed the reset. Cycle incomplete. Apex protocol reactivated. None of them spoke. Now they understood. Earth wasn't a home. It was a cage, and someone just unlocked the door. The crew was trapped. Behind them, the door to the tunnel remained sealed. In front of them, the pod chamber stood in darkness. Only, their suit lights remained. All systems had gone quiet. No power, no signal, no escape. The red glow from earlier was gone, but something else had replaced it. A feeling. Heavy. Sharp, like being watched by something ancient and hungry. One crew member moved to the console. Maybe they could reboot the ship, maybe call for help, but the screen showed only one word: observe. And then the screaming started. Not from inside the room, from their radios. Voices, many voices crying out, screaming for help, cut off mid-sentence. Some were human, others were not. Dozens of signals, overlapping, a wall of pain and terror. Then silence. Someone whispered, "Those were distress calls." But none of them had ever been sent, not by this crew, not by any human ship. These were old, very old, recorded by the system, stored and played back as a warning, or maybe as a trophy. Suddenly, the wall opposite the pods cracked open. Behind it was a tunnel, not man-made, not machine-made either. It looked carved by claws. The floor was broken. The air felt wrong, warm, wet. And then they heard the first sound. Clicking, soft and rapid, like bones tapping against metal. Something was coming. They backed away, lights shaking in their hands. One of them dropped a tool. The sound echoed down the tunnel. The clicking stopped. Silence. Then, boom! A shape launched from the dark. Too fast to see. A blur of muscle, teeth, and claws. One crew member went down in seconds. A sharp cry, and then nothing but blood. The others ran. Through the ruins, around broken pillars, past shattered machines. But the thing didn't chase like an animal. It moved with purpose. Smart. It cut off escape paths. It herded them. Like a hunter. Like a predator. They made it into a sealed room. Doors shut. Lights on. Breathing heavy. One of them looked at the security feed and froze. The creature stood just outside. It wasn't alone. More were coming, tall, thin, their bodies built for speed. Eyes glowing faintly white. Jaws split open like broken steel traps. Their skin shimmered like armor. These weren't wild beasts. They were designed, built for one thing, to hunt humans. The feed crackled. Static flashed. And then, a voice spoke, through the room's speaker. But it wasn't from the crew. It was a recording, a deep, calm voice from long ago. If this message plays, then the seal has broken. This facility was built to contain the apex strain. They were too dangerous, too perfect. Even we could not stop them. One crew member asked, shaking, "Who made them?" The answer came in the next line. "We did." Silence fell again. Now it all made sense. These predators weren't enemies. They were humanity's own creations. From a time long forgotten, when humans ruled the stars and made monsters in their own image. Stronger, faster, deadlier. But they couldn't control them, so they buried them and left a warning. Do not return. But humans had returned, and now, the apex predators were awake. The lights in the room flickered. The door shook. One final message appeared on the wall screen. Prey. Identified. Hunt activated, and the room went dark. Darkness. Total, heavy, crushing darkness. The crew was still, silent, their breathing the only sound. Then, a flicker. A screen lit up in the far corner of the room. A dim blue glow. One of the crew stepped forward slowly. Not because they were brave, because there was nowhere else to go. On the screen something moved. Lines, circles, symbols. A voice spoke, calm, emotionless. Memory core found. Unlocking origin file. And just like that, the truth began to pour out. The screen filled with images, not just pictures, living memories. The crew watched in silence as forgotten history revealed itself. Long ago, before Earth was called, humans were already in the stars, but they were not like today's humans. They were taller, smarter, stronger. They had unlocked every part of their minds, controlled machines with thought, built cities on suns. They didn't fear anything. They were the apex species. But with that power came pride, and pride created something worse. They had designed the perfect warrior, born in labs, grown in seconds. No fear, no weakness, no limits. These warriors were called apex strain. They were made to conquer galaxies. And they did. Alien empires fell in weeks. No force could match them. No army could stop them. Planets were turned into ashes. Civilizations erased. But then, something went wrong. The apex strain became too perfect. They stopped obeying. They stopped listening. And they began to evolve. Faster than anyone expected. Soon, even their creators, the ancient humans, could not stop them. The hunters became the hunted. A war began, not between species, but between two versions of humanity. Billions died. Worlds vanished. The old humans, now desperate, made one last plan. They built vaults, buried the apex strain deep underground, locked them in with fail-safes and warnings. Then, they wiped their own memories, started over, on a distant planet, with no history, no knowledge. That planet was Earth. The screen dimmed. Silence returned. The crew stood frozen. The truth was too much. One of them dropped to the floor, whispering, "We were never the beginning. We were the second chance." But now the first chance had returned. The apex were awake and they remembered everything. Suddenly, the wall behind the screen split open. A stairway led down into a cold chamber. The crew followed. There was nothing left to do but move forward. The bottom, they found it, a giant machine, round, glowing, alive. This was the true memory core. It pulsed like a heart. Lights moved across its surface. In the center was a chair, built for a human. One of the crew stepped forward. The chair responded, opened. They sat, and the machine turned on. Screams filled the air, not from pain, but from data, memories, voices, languages, maps, weapons, codes, all flooding into their mind. Their eyes changed, not glowing, not alien, just aware. When they stood up, their voice was different, calm, focused. I remember now. The others looked at them in fear and awe. They spoke again. We were never weak. We were made to forget. But they didn't erase everything. And then the ground shook. Far above on the surface, the apex strain had stopped hunting. Now they were gathering, not to kill, but to serve. They could feel it. Something had changed. Something old had returned. The memory core had chosen a new leader. One who remembered what it meant to be human. Before the fall, darkness. Total, heavy, crushing darkness. The crew was still, silent, their breathing the only sound. Then, a flicker. A screen lit up in the far corner of the room, a dim blue glow. One of the crew stepped forward slowly. Not because they were brave, because there was nowhere else to go. On the screen, something moved. Lines, circles, symbols. A voice spoke, calm, emotionless. Memory core found. Unlocking origin file. And just like that, the truth began to pour out. The screen filled with images, not just pictures, living memories. The crew watched in silence as forgotten history revealed itself. Long ago, before Earth was called Earth, humans were already in the stars, but they were not like today's humans. They were taller, smarter, stronger. They had unlocked every part of their minds, controlled machines with thought, built cities on suns. They didn't fear anything. They were the apex species. But with that power came pride, and pride created something worse. They had designed the perfect warrior, born in labs, grown in seconds. No fear, no weakness, no limits. These warriors were called apex strain. They were made to conquer galaxies. And they did. Alien empires fell in weeks. No force could match them. No army could stop them. Planets were turned into ashes. Civilizations erased. But then, something went wrong. The apex strain became too perfect. They stopped obeying. They stopped listening. And they began to evolve. Faster than anyone expected. Soon, Even their creators, the ancient humans, could not stop them. The hunters became the hunted. A war began, not between species, but between two versions of humanity. Billions died. Worlds vanished. The old humans, now desperate, made one last plan. They built vaults, buried the apex strain deep underground, locked them in with fail-safes and warnings. Then, they wiped their own memories, started over, on a distant planet, with no history, no knowledge. That planet was Earth. The screen dimmed. Silence returned. The crew stood frozen. The truth was too much. One of them dropped to the floor, whispering, "We were never the beginning. We were the second chance." But now the first chance had returned. The apex were awake and they remembered everything. Suddenly, the wall behind the screen split open. A stairway led down into a cold chamber. The crew followed. There was nothing left to do but move forward. The bottom, they found it, a giant machine, round, glowing, alive. This was the true memory core. It pulsed like a heart. Lights moved across its surface. In the center was a chair, built for a human. One of the crew stepped forward. The chair responded, opened. They sat, and the machine turned on. Screams filled the air, not from pain, but from data, memories, voices, languages, maps, weapons, codes, all flooding into their mind. Their eyes changed, not glowing, not alien, just aware. When they stood up, their voice was different, calm, focused. "I remember now." The others looked at them in fear and awe. They spoke again. "We were never weak. We were made to forget." But they didn't erase everything. And then the ground shook. Far above on the surface, the apex strain had stopped hunting. Now they were gathering, not to kill, but to serve. They could feel it. Something had changed. Something old had returned. The memory core had chosen a new leader. One who remembered what it meant to be human before the fall. The galaxy was silent, but not out of peace, out of fear. Across alien empires, old leaders whispered in panic. Ancient texts were opened. Banned histories were read again. All spoke of one thing, something not seen in thousands of years, the return of the apex. And now that return had begun. On Earth, strange machines rose from the ground, towers of dark metal hidden beneath cities, forests, even oceans. People watched in shock as they unfolded like sleeping giants, but no one could stop them. World governments sent drones, then ships, then weapons. Nothing worked, because these towers didn't attack. They were waking up. All across the planet, those who stood near them began to hear things, whispers in a voice they did not understand, yet somehow remembered. Far above, in Earth's orbit, something formed, a black ring made of light and dust growing fast. It wasn't natural. It wasn't alien. It was ours. Back on the dead world, the last few crew members stood beside the one who had merged with the memory core. Their eyes now shone like stars, calm, knowing, not entirely human anymore. They looked to the sky. It's time. The apex strain stood behind them. Hundreds, thousands, no longer hunters. Now followers, waiting. Ships appeared overhead, alien warships come to stop the awakening. Huge weapons aimed at the surface. Warnings were sent. Shut it down. Return to silence. You don't know what you're bringing back. But it was already too late. The one who remembered stepped forward, raised a hand, and spoke one word, not in any known language but something deeper. Older. The sky cracked open. A beam of light shot from the planet into space, faster than anything ever seen. It didn't destroy the enemy ships, it rewrote them. In seconds, their systems changed. Their AIs froze, their weapons turned inward. Then silence. The fleet drifted, empty. The message was clear. This is not a war. This is a reset. Back on Earth, The towers finished their work. From their cores, massive data waves pulsed across the planet. Every human mind felt it. Some as a dream, some as a memory. A story that was always inside them, finally unlocked. They remembered who they were, what they had done, and what they were still capable of. Hospitals saw patients stand from beds. Engineers solved impossible problems. Children looked to the stars and smiled. The fear of the dark was gone. Because now, they were the dark. Across the stars, alien species prepared for war. But war would not come. Instead, Earth sent only one ship. One small black craft, smooth, silent, perfect. It hovered outside the Alien Council's stronghold. No crew, no message, just a symbol on its side, a single circle. And then, the Council system shut down, not attacked, overridden. A message appeared. In every language, every screen, every mind. We are awake now. We do not seek revenge, we do not seek war, but we will not be caged again. We remember who we are. We are humanity. We are the apex.